Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call to order the Caledonia Community Schools Board of Education regular meeting for May 20th. If you could all please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to start with a quick couple housekeeping items here just to make sure we're going in the right direction. So if you are here for public comment, we do ask that you fill out one of these cards. On there it will give us information to follow up. We do ask that you limit your time to talk to the entire board for 3 minutes. We ask that you do not discuss personnel issues at this time or individual student matters. There's more information on the back of the card if you would please look at that. I will ask that those be turned in before public comment, which is number 5 on our agenda that you see up on your screen. The other adjustment that you will see on your screen, I believe, is that if you looked at the agendas ahead of time or if anybody had seen one, we are moving closed session discussion to the end of the meeting. There is not planned to be any motion coming out of closed session, but so we can get through all of the meeting items with everybody here and nobody has to wait, we're going to move that to the end. Can I please have roll call?
Berber Garcia. Here. Randall.
Here.
Esich here. Morris.
Here.
Sadu.
Here.
White.
At this time, we're gonna ask, do we have a student representative here? All right, do we have any cards for public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it here. Vicki,
Yes. Do I go up there?
Yep.
Oh, my.
please.
Yeah, yeah.
We do ask that when you're here for a public comment that you do, if you could adjust the microphone.
Okay.
It's not as intimidating as it sounds.
I don't know. I'm not usually one in the front of this classroom. Okay. My name is Vicki. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight. I have been privileged to be part of the school system for almost 20 years, and I'm currently a special ed parapro at the high school. And I've always been proud of how Caledonia Schools supports its students and staff. February this year, the director of special project assigned myself and another parapro to the toileting of a student in a wheelchair. The equipment for toileting was delivered to our school. The physical therapist from Kent ISD trained us to use the apparatus and to ensure the safety of the student. As you can see, this is a specialized activity. Okay. As you may be aware, the contract in place for support staff states that parapros receive a $1 per hour differential for toileting students that need this extra assistance. The differential was intended for parapros who deal on a daily basis with urine, feces, menstrual blood, body fluids, and diarrhea. Back in February, I contacted administration when my hourly wage had not been adjusted. I was informed that the differential was not being honored. This is not comfortable, okay. The reason given was that the administration had recently deleted the identifying letters to special ed classrooms, such as CI, MOSI, EI, or ASD. All special ed rooms at the high school are now simply classified as resource rooms. The unintended effect of this change in the classification lettering system ultimately then denied parapros such as myself the $1 per hour differential for toileting. The students in those classrooms are still in our schools and need to be toileted on a daily basis. What the parapros do for kids is important to the students and the teachers. All we want to do is support the students and staff. It is our mission. We, and myself personally, want to use all of our energies towards helping the students succeed throughout the year. The last thing we want to do, we should worry about, is a situation that arguably needed to have been resolved in February. I do want to express that my principal at the high school, Mr. Martin, and the superintendent, Mr. Wheeldriver, have both been very supportive, and I want to thank them publicly for their ongoing support. Again, our desire is to resolve the situation so that we can then focus our energy and support to the students that are part of our school family. It is my sincere hope that you will agree that the differential should be honored. Thank you for listening. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? No, okay, thank you very much. All right, we are going to move on at this time to 6, which is our consent agenda. 6A is April 15th, 2024 regular meeting minutes, May 14th, 2024 committee of the whole minutes, April 10th, 2024 committee of the whole closed session minutes, May 14th, 2024 committee of the whole closed session minutes, April 2024 payables, May 2024 personnel report.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Were there any corrections or questions on any of those items? Right, can I please have roll call?
Berger Garcia. Yes. Randall.
Yes.
Isich, yes. Morris.
Yes.
Sadoo.
Yes.
Light.
Yes, motion carries, thank you. On to 7, which is superintendent report, we have 7A SME grant, Dr. Diaz.
All right. Good evening, Board of Education and community. I am very pleased to share formally that Caledonia High School has been awarded a prestigious career and tech ed grant called the SME Prime Grant. SME is the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, and they, through a partnership and dollars funded by the state of Michigan, award opportunities for districts across the state and across the country to build out CTE programs in their schools. And we were one of 16 schools in the state of Michigan that were selected to be awarded this grant this school year. So there's been a press release and such, but this is the first opportunity. We were waiting patiently for all of the schools to respond and for SME to then put out their formal notification before we could formally share this publicly. So SME provides equipment and supplies, curriculum, and industry-recognized credentials, PD for our staff, scholarships for our students as they move from high school into post-secondary, funds for extracurricular and co-curricular activities tied to CTE, and sustainability funds. And that was one of the biggest things that I was excited about. Oftentimes we receive grant dollars, and when the grant dollars are gone, we're responsible for kind of absorbing all of the costs associated with those programs. And under SME Prime, the state of Michigan has established a separate sustainability fund so that once the live grant has ended, then we can apply for sustainability funds to continue things like the plastic for 3D printers. I'm not sure exactly what that's called, but the colored cording that they use in the printers. So things that we would normally have to kind of absorb, we will have an opportunity to continue with sustainability funds over time. So we are just excited for our students to have this expanded opportunity. It's a 4-year program, so students starting in 9th grade will be able to participate in the courses offered. And each of them comes with a separate certification, so students can join at any time between 9th and 12th grade. So for next year, we have shifted our kind of basic computer science program to be a part of the SME Prime programming, and have a group of students excited to be our first cohort. Thank you.
Were there any additional questions for Dr. Diaz on this? I know that we did talk about it and there were some questions I asked. Anybody? Certainly it's a great opportunity and we're certainly excited to see this come to us. No? All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move to 7B, strategic plan refresh. Mr. Wheeldryer?
All right. Up on the screen now, we will take a look here at some thoughts regarding where we are and where we will be looking ahead with our strategic plan as we are closing in on the end of the 5-year strategic plan, which which ran from 2019 through 2024. So we'll take a look at a couple of things. First of all, we want to take a look back at what that was and what that strategic plan was built on. And so here is our vision and mission, which has been the long-standing goals for Caledonia schools. And then into that was folded the 4 elements of the strategic plan that's run for the last 5 years. And the icons there depict each one of those. I'm looking on the back of the room. They're up here at the back of the room. And here is the strategic plan laid out in more detail. So the 4 core areas were teaching and learning, whole child, whole community, organizational coherence and systemic improvement, and fiscal sustainability. Now, there's a lot of words on that plan, and this will eventually be posted online so folks can look at it in more detail, but kind of the 30,000-foot view we'll take a look at here in just a second in looking at how we did. So here's the timeline of how things progressed from back in February of 2019 to where we sit today. We made annual updates along the way, and of course I wasn't here for 80% of this, so I'm going to do my best tonight to deliver this final overview. Here is our little dashboard of how things have progressed, and so you can see in the first column are those items that were either postponed or eliminated out of what was originally laid out in 2019. There were some things that as time progressed didn't appear to be appropriate to do anymore, but otherwise everything else has moved forward over into the implemented category. And that means that 94% of those items originally laid out in 2019 have been implemented. Some of those are one-time things that were achieved, others are ongoing, more process-related items. So again, if we go back to that initial slide with all the details, here are just a couple of high-level overview things. In the teaching and learning area, a lot of focus on various items having to do with curriculum and preparing our students, and the most recent initiative there is bringing in the PLC, or Professional Learning Communities approach, to help push for continuous improvement in our teaching side of things. But when we look at the whole child, whole community, a lot of efforts to promote a more positive school culture and promote wellness across the district. Wrapped into this, there's been a lot of attention paid to the Capturing Kids' Hearts initiative, which is a foundational piece, we believe now, of what Cal education embodies. In the organizational coherence and the systemic improvement area, there was a big reliance on information exchange so that all of our different parts to and stakeholder groups within the district would have access to information, both giving and receiving, and improved communications across the district. This is also where the elementary school boundaries were developed, and from that too stemmed a series of transportation efficiencies as well. And then in the fiscal sustainability area, needs-based budget, capital needs, leading to our bond proposals and other financial best practices were all implemented. So that's a quick high-level overview of some of the things that were achieved throughout this 5-year stretch. In that PowerPoint will be some more details breaking down each one of those, and then you can see them here. I won't belabor and go through each one of these tonight, but I invite interested folks to dive into that more deeply, and we're certainly willing to help interpret any of this stuff. If it becomes too education jargony, we'll try to help explain what that is. Among the high-level things, though, too, just a couple things to point out. Here is a little graphic describing once the elementary school boundaries went into place and the impact that that had on our transportation routing. So prior to those zone changes, our buses each year were driving the better part of 900,000 miles in a year. And after those zone changes, you can see the tremendous impact that had, dropping that mileage down to 627,000 miles for the year. In other words, that's a savings for the district of nearly $200,000 a year, more than $1,000 a day, based on those changes right there. So that's a real positive step forward from an efficiency and cost control standpoint. Other milestones were the implementation of the change in Our middle school structures, our K-8 reorganization, so that with the creation of Craft Meadows as an intermediate school, as 5-6, a grade 5-6 building, enabled us now, we've got the K4, 5-6, and 7-8 structure. We also have had these different bond proposals and a lot of great things underway and a lot of great things to look forward to. And we've talked about many of these things. On these pictures, you can see the Caledonia Community Center, the new Dutton, the various playgrounds that have been put in place. And then we've got a number of points of pride that have come along through the last 5 years, including two National Blue Ribbon Awards and a whole variety of other awards related to our teaching and learning department. So I think there's been a lot of great successes from the strategic plan. Of course, no district has ever reached the end, right? We want to continue to look forward and bring ourselves along. So it's time then to look at where we're going next. And as we've had some internal discussions, we believe that the best approach for us is to consider this a refresh of our strategic plan. Because the four main overall goal areas that we had are excellent goal areas, and they really encompass everything the district should be about. What we really need to be looking at is to refresh those goals underneath it, the more implementation sorts of things. And that lends itself more to a continuous improvement model, where the most successful organizations, they set long-range, long-term goals, and along the way, they set that course, put some measures in, and then as they're going along, they get to the end, they're evaluating how that plan is working, and then adjust that and relaunch. And that's what we're really envisioning is the point at which we're at here now, is that we've done the evaluation, and next we'll be adjusting and relaunching into our new strategic plan. These are the kind of process goals that we'll be looking for. We want to acknowledge where we've done well. We want to map and chart our progress, which you saw some of that already. We want to continue to adapt to a changing environment and the different things that are coming along. We've learned things along the way, and we want to be able to leverage those and improve from them, and then to align our goals to these realities and the areas that we still need improvement. And so that's what we'll be looking to do as we go along through this process. Here's a tentative roadmap. This is subject to change, and it's a fairly aggressive timeline. So if it needs a little stretching out, we will do that. But here we are in May, and so we're presenting here tonight to the Board of Education. We of course had discussion about this last week at the Committee of the Whole. The staff is working right now on the final touches on a survey, and we will be releasing that out to our various stakeholder groups, including parents and staff, and also out, it'll be in the Cal Communicator as a QR code that our public at large, even if they don't have students in the district any longer, should be able to access. It'll be on the website as well. So lots of ways for folks to provide input in an electronic format. Then we will be taking that, and through the course of the summer, we have some various retreat opportunities with our staff where we will be trying to compile those hundreds and hundreds of surveys into somewhat manageable pieces and putting together some very early draft sorts of things. And then as we reach the fall time, the intent is to have various feedback groups, focus groups representing our students, our staff, our community, getting the feedback from those groups and then adjusting what we've got out there in front of them, the various goals, and through that discussion, seeing if there are any other things that still also rise to the top. And then with the idea that perhaps by October, we can have things into a final format that the board can consider as adopting. So again, if that takes till November or December, that's fine too, but we want to keep moving on this so that we have our marching orders for the next period to come. Okay, so what we need from our public is that engagement that we've been describing here. We want to build on what we're going to start to now call our 4 strategic pillars, our things that we are going to build off of. And so these are different ways, as I just kind of described, for our community to get involved through the online surveys, the website forums, the stakeholder groups in the fall. And then we will continue to receive that feedback and adjust our planning documents as we go. So that's a quick overview. We went a little more into detail, had a little more discussion last week, but any further questions or comments from the board?
With the survey, is there any sort of safeguards, limitations or whatever, so that like I couldn't submit 10,000 survey responses and flood them with my ideas, for example? Or one per household, or I guess just if there's.
Yeah, that's a great comment. We'll look into that and see how we could do that. You're a tech guy, so maybe you can help us with that.
We need more to do, Jason, that's what you need, so.
I'm fine with that, I just,
No, yeah.
take the opportunity to flood that with my 10,000 things, we'll get Chick-fil-A at lunch.
Robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good point. Tim?
I would just like to ask that the board consider, as we're going through this process, how we're going to measure these goals. I know some of the items that we're measuring aren't so cut and dry, but in the board training and governance training that I've had in the past, it really isn't a goal unless you can measure it. And I think getting to example like capturing kids' hearts, how do we know it's successful? What are we doing to compare it to a standard that we preset as we move through this? So I just want it to be worthwhile and intentional. The goals are achievable as within 5 years.
Additional questions, comments? All right, we're good. So
Okay,
you wanna
then
move
I've got
on?
a few other items for the board tonight. The very first thing, I'd like to invite forward Mr. Nathan Walters and have him introduce himself. Mr. Walters is recently been named the new principal at Emmons Lake Elementary School. So, welcome, Nathan. I told him I'd give him a chance to stand in front of you and talk a little bit.
This is great. So I'll be brief, but just wanted to thank Mr. Wheeldryer, Mr. Kingsbury, and just kind of address the whole board for the opportunity. I was actually looking at some documents the other day, and I think I actually applied for the position back in February. So a testament to the process that your HR team puts in place. It was fairly strenuous, but just have had a lot of time, I think, to think about it, to pray about it, and just feel deeply committed that Emmons is where I want to call home, and I think that's a testament to the work that we do in this room, and the direction that the district is going. I think, Tim, to kind of piggyback on what you just said, like, not only does this district put goals in place, but they don't just live on paper or on walls, but they're actually actions and behaviors that we're taking to impact student outcomes. And I think that measuring goals piece of it is a big part of that. And so I think that's a testament to the people in this room. And then I think the other big thing that just really has me excited and energized to call Emmons home is just the passion that I've seen in the Caledonia community, and specifically among Emmons staff and parents. I think there's a lot of pride in the room, and with that pride, I think it's exciting. And so just excited to kind of embed myself in the fabric of the Caledonia community, and to really call this place home. So just wanted to express my thanks, and look forward to kind of getting to know you guys all better on a personal level at a later time. So open door policy, you know where to find me. We'll be across the road, and excited to get started. So thank you.
Welcome to
Thank
you.
I appreciate it.
You've had a couple meetings with staff and so on already? So.
Yeah, I think I was over at the building 4 times last week already, so we're 10 toes down, so we're gonna get this thing started. So thank you guys.
Congratulations and welcome
Thank
to you. We look forward to seeing you regularly.
I stepped on your applause there, sorry. All right, a couple of other items just real quick to bring the board up to speed on. Of course, tomorrow night, we will be at Calvin College for the commencement for the class of 2024, so that's very exciting. A great time of year, and last week we had the senior recognition night, and wonderful scholarships and award presentations went on there. And I got it up in front of me so I remember the numbers. 39 seniors received the gold cord award, and 116 seniors with the silver cord. So that's really an outstanding academic performance by our seniors. And so we look forward to celebrating with them tomorrow night. We had a couple other great things happen over the weekend. Brody Woodwike, who has been taking the lead in proposing and energizing support behind the Veterans Memorial over at the high school. We continue to be making really good progress on that. We're hoping to get that installation done this summer. And Brody and Caledonia High School received an award this weekend at the Armed Forces Thanksgiving Luncheon. And so Brody and his efforts to bring that memorial to the high school received a special award, including $1,000 toward that. So just a great recognition of all his hard work. And then over the weekend as well, our Rad Droden team participated in regional competition, it's called, which is actually sort of semi-national. They don't have a worlds, but they've got that sort of in-between thing. So hold on, I gotta pull up the results here. A lot of awards here, and in fact, after the qualifying matches, Caledonia stood in first, second, and third place in that competition, which is a multi-state competition. So a fantastic performance by them there. They also received awards, the Teamwork Champion Award, a third place Skills Award, a second place Skills Award, Judges Award, and the Think Award. So just fantastic performance by our Rad Drone team too. So lots to be proud of.
Any questions for Mr. Wheeldriver? All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move to 8, which is our action items. 8A is the Kent ISD budget.
I move that the board approve the 2024-25 Kent Intermediate School District proposed budget as presented.
Second.
Second by Brittany. Any questions, comments on that? No? Could I please have roll call?
Sadoo,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
whoopsies. Isich, yes. Brandau,
Yes.
Barbara Garcia. Yes. White.
Yes, motion carries. 8B, SEAB curriculum change.
I move that the board adopt the Sex Education Advisory Board's recommendation for curriculum updates.
Second.
Any questions or comments on this? No? All right, thank you for making that available for the public. Can we please have roll call?
Isich, yes. Brandau,
Yes.
Barbara Garcia.
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Sadoo,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. On to 8C, Emmons Lake Furniture Bond 2020. I see Mr. Hess moving this way. Can I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the purchase of classroom furnishings for installation at Emmons Lake Elementary School in an amount not to exceed $175,000.
Second.
Thank you. I think Mr. Hess is gonna provide us with, no, not, you're just standing there just in case? Okay, all right. If there are any questions for Mr. Hess on that, I know that we've talked about this one a couple times as well. And Mr. Walters is very excited that there's, new stuff coming his way too, so.
Principal, new furniture.
I know, this is just all perfect timing, so, all right.
New playground?
Yeah,
New playground.
doesn't get much better than this to start, so. Can I have roll call, please?
Barbara Garcia,
Yes.
Sadoo,
Yes.
Brandau,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Isich, yes. White.
Yes, motion carries. 8D, Kettle Lake Freezer Food Service Fund.
I move that the board approve the proposal from Merchandise Equipment and Supply for construction and installation of an external cooler, freezer, and dry storage unit at Kettle Lake Elementary School in the amount of $144,493.70.
Second.
This is why Mr. Hess is here. All right, so I know that there were a couple of questions brought forth and Mr. Hess was not feeling the greatest at the committee last week, so go ahead and share with us what you want and we can follow with questions.
Just to start, we had a bit of an engineering change that about 80% of the water from the roof at Kettle Lake Elementary was coming down exactly in the spot where this freezer was gonna be placed. So we worked with the provider to engineer in a set of roof drains that would redirect a vast majority of that water through a storage room and outside at a wall at a location of our choosing, much lower, much safer and much less damaging to the equipment. In the course of that, we were seeking a best and final quote, which we did not receive until about 5 o'clock this afternoon, hence the change in the cost. The original Total was coming in at 145,793. We're now at 144,493. So there's a little bit of an improvement, but and somewhat unexpected to see a reduction. Always nice. It's been a challenging project to get all the quotes and everything, all the engineering straight on in order to get it in and done on time. More questions? Because this is a toughie.
So that amount includes the new drainage, the roof drain?
Correct. This also includes the bollards to protect the unit from the parking lot area of which they are being placed adjacent. What it does not include is any type of visual screening, only because it's not something we could figure out before we could get it in there. We'd like to see what it looks like when we're done with the color and the painting and how well it fits in and what we're gonna need. So we're looking forward to getting something in there to help it look a little better than just a freezer hanging out in the parking lot.
And who's going to be the judge of whether this needs additional screening?
Megan, Dr. Wheeldryer, we'll bring Sarah over there, we'll bring Mimi over there, not me. I'm good with that.
Any additional questions? All right, we're good. Thank you. Can I please have roll call?
River Garcia,
Yes.
Sadu,
Yes.
Brandau,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. EE, Neola policy revisions, second reading and adoption, part 1.
I move that the board conduct a second reading and adopt immediately the following policies: 1240, 3220, 6320, 6321, 6325, 6350, 6520, and 8800.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any of these policies? Can I please have roll call?
Morris,
Yes.
Brandau,
Yes.
River Garcia,
Yes.
Sadu,
Yes.
Isich, yes, White.
Yes, motion carries. On to 8F, which is Neola policy revisions, second reading and adoption, part 2.
I move that the board conduct a second reading and adopt immediately the following policies: 2410, 2414, and 2418 using option 1.
Second. Discussion, please.
Well, I would prefer option 2, the district edited version that simplifies the policy, I believe. Takes the politics out of it, I believe. And I think would be in the better interest of the district.
Any additional comments on this?
So I think option 1, rescinding the policy, takes the politics out of it, and leaves the interests of the students into the hands of our teachers that, can make the best decision for them at a time, so.
I love our teachers, but this is a parent thing, man. That's not the option for teachers. So I agree with 10.
I think that just a couple of things. So the reason why this was even brought forth on the table was because there was a change in the law. So this was a law that was put in place and now a law that has been dropped. So now this is brought back before us to make a decision what to do with. Obviously, the point of policy is to always make sure that policy puts us in place of being within the law and for everybody's sake. I guess I wanna be very careful, because I think that regardless of where you live, we cannot be in a space of believing that every child's home is always a safe place. In a happy world, I think we'd all love to believe that, but we do want to make sure that all kids have a safe place to be and to talk to. I think, assuming that our staff has any ill intent ever, with children would certainly be a dangerous space to be in. I certainly am okay with the option 2, but I certainly do not have any question as to the integrity of our staff or how that they would handle themselves, knowing that we all sit in these seats as mandatory reporters and knowing that they do have our students' best interest. We did not have problems before these policies were put put in place and has not been a problem since they've been put in place. So I just, we have to make a decision on how we move forward on this. Moving forward on it doesn't mean that it can't be further discussed or there can't be questions afterwards, but the law was changed again. So we should be making a change to our policy. Go ahead, Tim.
So we currently have the ability for staff to reach out to Child Protective Services and if there's any question, so that's not gonna change.
Mhm.
What I'm not gonna be standing down on is that parents have the rights to make the decisions of their children, and that's law. So I don't wanna have this policy conflict against law, and I think the alternative option 2 best represents that.
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead, Katie, you raised your hand, I didn't know.
Gotcha. I mean, I feel like I could go either way with this one, but I do think that it's interesting that the only thing it bars from is talking about abortion as opposed to unwanted pregnancies. So we don't have a policy that would stop a staff member from counseling the opposite direction, but just this way. And I think that is where it starts to feel more political for me. Cause I can totally get behind, I would prefer being the person at the reins for my children. But I also agree with you that there are vulnerable populations of kids who might go to a trusted teacher or a counselor. And what resources can our district provide those students with this policy would be a question that I would wanna know before passing it, where, I mean, I guess we have had it in place, we've also had it not in place, so that's kind of where the fine line is for me.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was gonna say a lot of what Katie said, so there's not much else left to say other than, I don't disagree. I mean, it ideally, yes, it's the parents, right? And law says it's the parents. And the law currently still says it's the parents. I mean, even if it came down to it, it's like we have a young lady who is unfortunately in a situation where she has decided or somebody decided she needed an abortion, it still requires parental consent. So I mean, I don't see this as removing the parent out of it at all. And as Katie said, there are a lot of things that should be parent conversations that we don't bar from our teachers from talking about. I mean, anything that you want to say around the pregnancy and in general, such as birth control or even period products, right? We don't bar the staff from talking about those things, but those things should probably start with the home and be a parent thing anyway. But we also know that we have some kids that just don't have that relationship with their parents. I also firmly believe that we should have someone, not a parent, available for kids to talk to. Ideally, not a staff member, but that's sometimes all we have. I mean, our kids are spending more time with our staff than sometimes their own parents, just by the nature of things.
So then, how is that determined? So if we have a student who determines whether the parent is the one to go to or the staff members want to go? How do you make that distinction?
I mean, I think it's up to the student, right? Like, so I'll give you for instance, it's a what if scenario, right? So let's say we have a young lady who does, become pregnant younger than we would like. And she goes to her parents and talks to the parents, and the parents are just adamant, no, you are getting an abortion, we are terminating this child, no ifs, ands, or buts. Doesn't say a word. With this policy, would that child be able to come in and talk to one of our counselors and say, hey, can you give me some information on the safety of abortions? Because my parents are adamant that I'm gonna get one and they won't talk to me about it. That's a for instance of like.
And that may be where it goes, but it's not our child, it's the parent's child. Parents are responsible for their children's medical, their well-being. So if that's what the parents are gonna be advocating, then that's up to them. But it's certainly not up to this district to make those.
There was no decision being made, it was, I would like information. Can we hand information about a lot of things in the hands of our students. Can information be provided in that case under this policy where that be considered assistance and thus be a violation of policy and potentially a termination offense?
Who can answer that question?
So, and that's where I think the policy as it is, with no law behind it, is way too vague. Even the adjustments that have been made, it's way too vague and covers too many things, because I think too many things could be considered assistance. If we pick up a pregnancy resource and one of the footnoted websites happened to have a link somewhere deep within that website that was for abortion, does that now constitute assistance because it was just there? Even though the pamphlet or whatever information was received didn't have it. I know we like to sometimes nitpick websites that appear on stickers and things in classrooms, so it's the same kind of thing. If we have, again, a website that wasn't intended to be, but, if you click around enough, you can find it, does that constitute assistance? Does that get our teachers in trouble? Again, I would rather allow the teachers and staff and counselors and social workers and people that are employed by the district to use their best judgment to say, I've spent enough time with this child that I know they have the strong home life, and I can say, go talk to your parents. Just because we wouldn't have this policy in place doesn't mean 99.9% of the time the answer wouldn't be, yeah, you should talk to your parents about that. That's not really something you should come to me for. But if we have a child, a young lady whose mom is in a coma and dad is suffering from some mental things, who else are they going to talk to? And that's. And if they don't talk to one of our people, they're going to talk to social media, and I think that's even worse for the student.
I'm not sure there's many parents that are in comas with kids going to our schools.
Yeah, there is. I know one in specific.
Okay, both parents.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's unfortunate for sure, but I'm gonna stand by where my convictions put me, and that is that option 2 is the only option I will support.
And I think all of us believe that this is a parent's right to be involved in this and a parent's decision with their kids. I don't think that's even a question, so. At this point in time then, to make sure, just because we've got it on here, make sure that we're doing this correctly here. So what has been motioned and seconded is option 1. So we would either need to do this as an amendment to option 1 to pass it in the way that we've seen the revision that came from the law firm when we asked for the revision, or it would be passed this way. So I need to,
Yeah, so let me click
Go
on
ahead.
that. So on the table is the motion to adopt the
Correct.
3 policies using option 1. If there is a desire to not pursue that, which then we would at that point need a motion and a second to do that, and then we would consider that amendment first before we consider the final passage.
I move to amend to option 2.
is there a second?
Second.
Alright,
If we move to option 2, could we take additional time to amend this language? Because I think that this language is very vague also, actually. And probably leaves our teachers in a more vulnerable place than I think we're intending. So, I'm not sure what I just did to negatively impact procedure, and I'm
Well,
sorry
the-
about that, but.
If I could just interject, the appropriate thing to do there would be to table
the whole
the
motion.
action altogether, and so we could have further discussion as we go to address those concerns. This is not it's not a policy that has a mandatory adopt by date in it. It's just that we are now in a position where the current policy as written no longer has the law behind it in the state, so we need to do something. But of course, we are entering into the summer, so we would have some time to continue to address it if that's the board's desire. But we do have an amendment that has been moved and seconded, so we need to address that first.
Even with an amendment that's been moved and seconded, if that passes, we can still look for additional information or changes.
Certainly, I mean, we can,
I mean, that
more
doesn't-
amendments can be made, or at that point, if there are gonna be additional amendments to be made, just in the interest of keeping everybody and we're not wordsmithing at the table. My suggestion at that point is if the board, it does not feel ready to adopt either option, that
Then we table the
we
whole
would
thing.
table it and keep working on it. So we have an
So-
amendment on the table
yes.
that we need to address.
So we either will take roll call on the amendment as it is, which doesn't mean that we still can't go forward, ask for additional information and changes. We will just be revisiting the same policy in which we've amended to look at any further amendments,
Correct.
right? I mean, right? I'm not trying to complicate it, I just wanna make sure that
Right,
Brittany's
so
understanding
the
that.
appropriate thing to do next is that we would
So
we
we're
would
either gonna
have-
vote-
we have to vote on the amendment as we currently have it.
Right.
And then if there is a motion following that to table this discussion, that could be had, but
The only problem would be is that if we vote on it, so if we vote on it and it passes as is, but there still wants to be a look at it for any possible revisions or more clarity to it, then there would not be another motion because it's already passed.
Oh,
so-
we need a parliamentarian, don't we?
But you know what I'm saying? Cause at
Yeah.
that point in time, now it's passed, so
You can
it's-
make
Well,
another
no,
amendment
because the
after
only
that.
thing we're considering right now is the amendment that Mr. Morris made. So that's the
Correct,
thing that's
okay.
on the table for discussion.
I
alright,
call the question.
but Kate, yeah, Katie's got
Okay, so first of all, sorry, this is gonna be a nightmare for you because I have no idea how to handle this. But so, is it best that we don't, like, well, not that we don't vote through. Is it easiest to not pass anything and discuss it, or is it easiest to pass something tonight and discuss it? That's what I'm unclear on, not from a secretarial standpoint.
I don't know that it really makes a difference one way or another, other than we have a new starting point if we pass something. But it's, I mean, I don't know that from your standpoint, dealing with Neola or dealing with sending things in, does it matter? I mean, does it make it easier, harder, less confusing, more confusing, anything?
We can change any policy at any time.
Correct, absolutely, for sure. So I just we either need to move forward with a roll call on the amended version to option
I'm trying to
one.
look at Robert's
Wait,
rules
to
right
option
now
one?
and I'm not
So-
clear on when we.
The amended version to option one is what has now had a motion and a second, and that would actually be what reads as option two is what you're seeing.
Yes. That makes sense.
I didn't.
Okay, so
So here's what
So
we're
if
at.
we vote
Okay.
yes or no.
Here's
Okay,
where
hold.
we're at.
Okay,
We
just
got
hold.
two things out on the table
Yes.
that I'm hearing about, so tabling is the second one.
Right.
The first one is the current motion on the table that we need to discuss. And then I think would be best done to vote on it, would be whether to make the amendment substituting option two for option one.
Right.
In the original motion made by
Right.
Mr. Sadoo. So that's the amendment that we would next be voting on. After that is done, then in order could be a motion to table this discussion, or we move to a vote on the original amendment, if that fails or passes, or if the amendment fails or passes.
Either way, whether it fails or passes, there can still be further discussion on it afterwards, but
Correct.
we can always change a policy, we can always revisit a policy.
So I think I called the question on the
Yes.
amendment.
So you called for to go,
It
right,
needs
to
a
go
second,
with
it
that.
needs
And
a, we need
the
a
second
second
was
to call the
John.
question.
We already had the second from John. So I would need roll call, and this is to look at the amended option one, which would read
Okay, so I just have to be technical here because a motion was made to call the question, we need to vote on ending debate. Because that motion was made, so we need to do that, and that takes a 2/3 majority, so we'll need 4 of you to say yes, end the discussion on this amendment. So, because
That's not
that
on your
motion was
paper.
made, we have to follow through on that,
Okay.
so we need a roll call first on ending debate on this amendment.
that's not on your
Got
paper.
it?
So
None of this
you can
is,
use the same roll call order that you have.
Yep.
And just write in motion to end debate.
Okay.
Okay, so I would need right now a motion to end debate on
the amendment, on the amendment.
the amendment, please.
I move.
So we've got that on the table, so you need to now call for the call roll. So you are voting now on whether we stop talking about the amendment.
You'd have a whole audience vote yes at this point, so because we're all lost, so go right ahead.
Should I pick the roll call
Sure.
from the original things?
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
just repeat,
that's fine.
you can just
Okay.
Sure, you can repeat it.
Brandau,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
Sadu,
Yes.
Barbara Garcia,
Yes.
White.
Yes, that motion carries.
Right, so we have now concluded debate on the amendments, now we have to move to an immediate vote on the amendment. Roll call again.
Okay,
So this is on Tim's motion.
okay, so this is gonna be, Tim was the first, John was the second
Correct.
for the amendment on option 1 to make it option 2.
To
Correct.
change the language of the motion
Okay.
from
What
option
you
one
have
to
is,
option
yes, correct.
Okay. Brandau,
Yes.
Isich, no, Morris,
Yes.
Sadu,
No.
Barbara Garcia,
No.
White.
Yes?
Okay, so that's 3-3, so the motion technically fails at that point.
And now we're back to the motion on option one, right?
Now we are back to the motion that was originally on the floor
Correct.
because the amendment failed. Or we can entertain a different motion.
And that motion already had a first and a second.
Correct.
So we would need is roll call on the original option 1.
Well, or we are still in discussion on the original motion.
We can have a motion to table.
Yes, you can move to
You
table.
can move to table. Yes.
I see, thank you for that.
Okay, so yes, you can motion to table, and I just would need a second on that.
Otherwise, we just vote.
Otherwise, we're gonna vote on the,
We'd vote on leaving it as option 1 as it was. Or to rescind it, I'm sorry, just,
we'd vote on it as option 1.
yes, which was option 1.
Given that it doesn't seem that we're gonna move forward tonight, I would move to table.
Okay,
Second.
right, John? Okay,
I'm just gonna use the same list.
yes, please.
Third time. Okay, Brandau,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
Sadu,
No.
Barbara Garcia,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. This item will be tabled and carried forth to next month. Okay. All right, we are going to move forward now to 11, which is our discussion items. 11A, which is our 2023-24 budget amendments and 2024-25 budget hearing. Mr. Breeze and Mr. Wheeldryer.
Right, Mr. Reese, why don't you start with an overview of what we're gonna be doing in the next month, and then I'll go through a couple things of where we are right now.
Before we get started, I just wanna we are under a severe weather watch right now. So I just wanna make sure everybody's aware of that. If we do need to take cover, and there is no indication that we will do this. The board will move through this door behind us and go into our work area. I will take our audience members to a different route. We'll all fit in there nice and tight until severe weather expires, so.
Well, at least he didn't tell us we're all going to the bathroom together, so that was good news.
I thought about that,
Okay.
too many of us.
All right, okay,
Don't anticipate anything.
all right, thank you for the heads up, all right.
Okay, so for budgets and what will be coming to the board next month, we will be looking to close out the 23-24 fiscal year with our final June amendments. And we will also be having our public hearing to adopt our budget for 24-25. So that will be happening at next month's meeting.
All right, and then let's take a look at a couple things about our budget and where things stand right now. Some of this a lot of this we talked about at the committee of the whole last week, but just a couple of brief updates for you and then just to update the public on where things stand as well. So this past Friday was the State Revenue Conference, which happens twice a year. And this is where the state figures out how much money they have to actually budget. And so at that revenue conference on Friday, it was officially adopted that the revenue collections have been revised downward. The amount overall that they are expecting to collect this year that we are currently in 23-24, which for the state runs through the end of September. Their budget year runs through September. That revenue is expected to be down by more than $160 million from what was originally projected the last time they got together and talked about this in January. So that's to give you context on that, 160 million sounds like an awful lot. From the state budget standpoint, it's actually less than 1% of the school aid fund budget. However, the budgets that have been proposed, I'll just show you in a second, are not really going to be able to meet that number. Moving forward in 24-25, the revenue growth is now estimated to be at 2%, and then for 25-26, it's estimated at 2.3%. Those things will change as we go along and as we continue to move forward, but just for the board's long-term budget planning, just to be understanding that revenue growth is just going to be around that 2% level. And so that is a number that while it's good to grow, it's not going to be at the kinds of increases that we've seen over the last couple of years. So that's a big takeaway for us all to consider. And then secondly, in the current situation where that 160 million came in, that means that neither the governor's proposal from February nor the House proposal from a couple of weeks ago, actually, neither one of them can be passed as stand because they would both result in a budget that was spending more money than the state would have. And because the state has a balanced budget amendment, that is not possible. Now, they were never going to pass as originally proposed because the three different versions, the House, the Senate, and the governor's budgets are all widely variant already. So they're going to have to work things out, but it just means they're going to have to even kind of be cutting back further on the sort of aspirational things that were in each version of the budget. So that's the main takeaway, I think, from last Friday. There's certainly some money there for increases. It's just a little less than was originally thought. So for us, when we look at our revenue in the big picture, and just use, for instance, the governor's original proposal, which is the middle proposal of the three on the amounts that would be coming to us for our most basic programs, our foundational allowance for preschool, those sorts of things. She had proposed a 2.5% increase. And as I just alluded to, next year it's projected that those dollars are only going to increase by 2%. So right there's it's going to be maybe a little bit of a struggle. And then for us at a local level, we know we have to pay for all these different things out of that 2.5% increase, which for us those amount to much more than 2.5%. The steps alone, I believe, it amounts to about 3%, right? So we've got some work to do. We also know that we are in a position here where the ESSER funds, all those COVID-related funds and other things that the state has received as a result of that are wrapping up. All of that must be spent by the end of September. So essentially, it carries us through our summer programs, and that's kind of it. So as we look to the 24-25 budget, here's where we kind of stand. Right now, with whatever we've got about 6 weeks to go, our fund balance estimate is going to be somewhere in the range of 14.4% to 16.1% when all is said and done. We would expect when we have to bring the budget to you in mid-June that it's gonna be maybe closer to that 14.4% mark. And then usually as things close out and everything shakes out toward the end of our budget year, because we have a few weeks that run out after we present to you and before that all said and done, that we might push perhaps as high as that 16.1%. That's just using our averages of the past 5 years to predict from where we currently stand to where we might finish. And just a note on that, I mean, we try intentionally to have conservative budgeting so that as we go along, we're surprised to the good and not surprised to the bad. Okay, so as we look then ahead to 24-25, the projection for that year, as Sarah's been developing this, is that we face right now the expiration of some of those COVID dollars, and with the staffing that we currently have, with planned increases that are part of that, with inflationary increases and other, our projected revenue sits at a shade under 70 million, where our projected expenditures, if we kept everything as is, would be 74,600,000 and change. So there are lots of assumptions built into this. We have a huge number of things that we don't know. So a budget is always we are trying to make our best guess and moving forward. Among the two biggest are, we don't know how much the state's gonna give us on a per pupil basis. So that's one huge part of the puzzle that we don't know. The second part that we don't know is we don't know how many students we're gonna have next fall, and that's another thing that we have to make educated guesses on. And from a budgeting standpoint, we're currently budgeting for a flat enrollment because as we took a look at last week, that's kind of where our trend line has been. So that's where some of the biggest things are, but there are a host of other assumptions. We kind of went into more detail with those last week. So again, we try to conservatively budget, so we want changes to be on the good side, not on the bad. Just a reminder that we have board policy in place that calls for a minimum fund balance of 13% in that budget that we adopt, and that we make an annual deposit into the public improvement fund. And so by that stretch and using our conservative budgeting practices, the goal that the board has in doing that is that we end somewhere north of that 13% so that we can get closer to what is really the preferred recommended amount, which is around 15% that we would carry forward year to year. So last week as we met, the clear message from you as the board was for us, the administration, to develop a plan that's going to adhere to this policy. In other words, that our minimum end of year fund balance that we would be targeting with our budget would be no less than 13%. So that's the way that we are moving forward. One of the things that has changed here as we continue to do number crunching and look at this is that the number got a little better as to what we will need to trim in order to reach that goal. So if we go through these columns here, 23-24's estimated final, that's to give you an idea where we might finish. And here we are using the most rosy outcome possible, and that's ending with a 16.1% fund balance, which is the bottom left box there. Then if we carry that to the next column, in the 24-25 do nothing column, you see the revenues and expenditures as we just talked about, which results in the third box down in the deficit of $4.7 million. Then you put in that beginning fund balance where we would end this current year, 16.1%, and then what you see in the bottom box is where we would end if we do nothing, and that would be that our fund balance would be at 8.9%. Well, that isn't our board policy, and that's not the direction you wanted us to go in. And so then we took a look at a couple of other what ifs, and then the one we're landing is the far right hand column, which is what if number 3. And so what's revised here is the number that we would have to cut. Last week we were talking in terms of a $3 million cut, but it looks now like that would need to be a $2.7 million is what we are targeting to bring to you. So that's that. I wanted to provide you with that update. So that has been our marching orders, and that's what we are working on. And as we meet again on June the 4th for another work session on this topic, that's where we will be trying to bring you a plan that gets to that 13% mark and cuts $2.7 million. And we'll get your input on that as we bring that to you on the 4th. Okay, so there it is, 2.7 million from this initial projection of 74.6. You've directed us to look at everything, look at all of our district operations and functions, so there's a lot going on when we have a $74 million budget. So we are doing that work, and these are some of the things that we had listed and talked about, and we won't belabor any of these, but just so the public sees, these are all things that we talked about and were all part of the picture that you wanted us to look at. So comprehensively look at all that we're doing. Okay, so this is what we showed you last week, that as we look at some things that we already know from the first section there is our staff retirements and resignations. There are savings to be had from that. Whether or not we replace the positions, the first row is things that were part of COVID money. Right now, with the retirements and resignations and all from that stretch right there, we would be saving $550,000. The second row down is things that were not ESSER, but where folks are retiring or resigning. And so that's another almost $900,000 there. And then in non-ESSER positions, in other words, ongoing positions, where we would be replacing, 330 was the column where we save. I was reading off the cumulative amount. And then the estimated amount for the ones that we would replace. And so this is typically by having an older staff member higher up on the salary schedules retire, be replaced by a staff member just starting their career. We would be saving upwards of $500,000 for that. So just in that top section, you can see our cumulative savings would be about 1.37 million right there. And then in our support staff, what we know so far on retirements and resignations, we save another $278,000 or so. And then another thing that we've already identified that we believe we need to conclude is our investment in the Pine Rest support program because it's just not been well utilized, and that represents $46,000 in and of itself. So as we talked last week, the number that we are already to is essentially 1.7 million. So we are continuing to work on finding that last $1 million that we're going to need. So where we are at so far, just to give you all an idea, is that 1.7 million identified so far would get us to a fund balance of 11.45, which is below that 13 target. So that just shows you with that million to go, take us that final way about 1.55%. Okay, so that's where we stand. There's the little red arrow shows where we currently are on the side to side slide, so you can see we're kind of close to the next to last column, but we got a ways to go to get all the way over to the right to the 13%. Right, any questions on that? Quick overview of where we were, but just wanted to bring you up to date on especially the number that we're looking at.
Jason.
So I know one of the questions that we had committee last week was in talking about how our enrollment numbers are really kind of where they were in 2018 or whatever year we were talking about. But our staffing had increased with anticipation of growing, right, administrative, teaching, everything else. So just didn't know if we had a chance to sort of look at what kind of staffing levels were we at back then versus now, how many administrative positions have been added, et cetera.
Yes, so that's exactly what we're looking at, and that's what we'll be updating you more on the 4th of June.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Additional questions? All right, thank you to the entire team. I know this is difficult and this is a people business, and when such a huge percentage of our budget is spent on people, it's always going to be difficult. So thank you to each and every one of you for continuing to work on this road. So anything additional? Therese, no? Okay. 11B is SLRF resolution. Mr. Reese?
This will be coming to the board as well next month. This is what we need to adopt annually as being part of the school bond loan fund. This enables us to levy and maintain the levy of 7 mills to pay our bonded debt. And the difference that we are short, then we borrow from this school bond loan fund. So that will be coming to you next month to vote on.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Breeze on that? All right, we're gonna move to 11C, which is Kettle Lake Playground Bond 2020. Mr. Hess.
I spent some more time at Kettle Lake this evening, we've already been there once. Moving on to a 2020 bond project. We had playgrounds dedicated funding at 3 elementary schools, 2 of which are, 1.5 of which I should say are complete. Emmons Lake will be hopefully complete by the end of next week, just in time for summer, so go figure. Kettle Lake has been a challenge and a joy to work with, trying to build together a playground proposal for them. So the initial pictures of what that will look like, yes, they are concept drawings, so they don't quite fit into the look of the whole picture, but it's a very cool unit, it's very nice. It is a custom designed unit, which was enabled them to get it into budget so that the ordering time will be upwards of 20 weeks. So this may also be a long-term project being installed next spring, but we should get it on order and get it going so that we're in for the 2020 bond. So that was an introduction this week. The quote and everything are in there and ready to go for that.
Did you say 20-week ordering time?
20 weeks, yes.
Okay, thank you. Additional?
Manufacturing time, I should say.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any additional questions? Tim?
This equipment is highly accessible, is that correct?
Not incredibly so, no. There are aspects of it that are accessible. There is a ground level unit. Obviously, it's a net climber, so that does limit a lot of it does require use of a lot of legwork. But there is a large ground contingent on the one section, and it does have an accessible platform that will allow access for arm climbers and such on the low net to the slide.
Additional questions?
There are also swings and a front to back swing, which is an accessible 2-person swing going in as well.
Great, thank you.
One more.
Jason?
Yeah, so the original budget was like 275 and we're coming in under that. What do we have planned for the others?
They currently have 256 remaining in
Okay.
total. We've done the 2 Gaga pits out there, and we've done some other minor work on their playground already. So they're currently 256 available. So we're gonna kind of hang on to that and see where this pans out. Might have a few issues with drainage out there that we have to address as well.
There's no drainage problems there.
Nah, never.
Matt, do you know how much we've invested in playgrounds district-wide with this, like?
The bond would be 275 times 3. Who's got the math?
800-ish.
800 and some odd. Yes. That will be with the 2020 bond.
Yeah.
And there is some 2023 bond investment in the Paris Ridge playground as well.
Anything else? No? All right, thank you. Do you wanna continue on with the classroom storage for Kettle Lake?
And back to Kettle Lake again. Kind of a continuing project as part of the dedicated funds to furniture, fixtures, and equipment at some of the schools, including Kettle Lake. The HVAC unit installation at Kettle Lake brought these storage units, the storage facilities along the windows to kind of a spotlight out at Kettle Lake. These are units that were installed greater than 25 years ago. They are metal, they are rusting, they are breaking. They do have some sharp edges, some things we need to address. Working very closely over the course of almost an entire year with Megan and her staff, we've come to a unit that it meets their needs and can be expanded upon, is very flexible, it can be shifted from room to room. It does involve removing the metal units. There'll be some concrete repairs along those walls. There are existing holes in some of those walls that were from the old HVAC units that we will be addressing and patching and making look a lot better. They're currently just sealed and insulated with metal, so we're gonna clean them up with some masonry, and we're gonna scrape and paint. The last portion to this after the install of the furniture, if that passes, will be treating the floor underneath it. We have no idea what that's gonna look like as these come out, so we don't know what we're gonna be trying to have to commit to that. So we're just kind of holding that out there as a possibility. The numbers that you see in the attachments here are more than the amount we have on hand to pay for this, currently covered in the bond. So that we will be reducing units, but again, this is a flexible item that we can add to in the future. It's been around for a great deal of time, it's got a great reputation, so we can add to them, shift them around, make different classrooms with different configurations.
Great, thank you. Any questions? I think we're good. Thank you. All right, at this point in time, we're gonna move to 12, which is board comments. If I may start, just so that everyone is aware and we're all on the same page here. So one of the things that we did a few months back is we changed our board and committee structure. Previously, we had been divided into 3 committees that were serving. 2 committees were meeting monthly with 3 board members each, and then we did have a policy committee that was only meeting probably about twice a year or as policies came up for looking at or revisions before they came to the whole board. It was asked if we would go to a committee of the whole, so that we did do that, which took us back to having 2 meetings a month essentially. So we were doing a committee meeting and then our regular workshop meeting, or our regular board meeting. With that, I think that we have found that there are, again, maybe some extra redundancies that maybe we don't need to have as we're trying to use the time of our administrative team prudently and still make the best decisions that we can going forward. With that, for the next few months, we are going to go to 1 meeting a month. It will look very much like this, where we have now heard discussion items that will be things that will come to us to vote on next month. When we have things that do take us more time, such as budget items, strategic planning, those will come up, then we will add in committee meetings that will be the entire group, and those will be posted as well, just as they have been in the past. So going forward, we did plan a meeting for June, I don't have it in front of me at this moment. 4th, okay, thank you. So June 4th, there will be a committee meeting, if you will, that happens, or workshop, let's call it. So we're gonna call that a workshop that will happen on June 4th. That will be less formal. Our intention in those workshops is to not have items that we will vote on. We will bring anything that we need to vote on to a regular board meeting. So the regular board meetings will keep the same schedule that they already have on, that are already listed on the website. Does that make sense to everybody at this point? Is there anything anybody would like to add?
I'd just like to add, there is on occasion, if we need to add a special meeting, we will add a special meeting, but that won't be tied with those work sessions. We'll also separately post those.
Correct, and then we can evaluate after the next few months if that has better served our purpose. If not, we will then adjust again. So any other comments about that specifically? Okay, if there's any questions or anything comes up, please reach out to Mr. Wheeldriver, Soad, or myself, and we will make sure that everybody has communicated the same information. Certainly, I wanna thank Kelly for putting together, I think that you're the appropriate person to thank, the online thank yous to staff. We certainly have amazing staff, and as we look at staff appreciation and we wrap up a year, it seems really odd to be wrapping up a year that ends in May. I'm really kind of struggling trying to wrap my head around all that. So thank you to our incredible staff and all of you that have worked so hard to get us there, and we're all looking forward to graduation next week, or tomorrow, I'm sorry. Whew, the end of school next week, so I'm jumping ahead, but anyway, so thank you for doing that, I appreciate it. Any other items from board members? Jason?
Yeah, we tabled a motion and I just want, what are we path forward, what's the next steps on that? Are we gonna have discussion next month and then come back for a vote in July, or how's that?
Well, I'll talk about it with President White, but I guess my recommendation would be we put it on the June 4th agenda too, as well as our budget conversations, since we're getting together then, and we can see where we wanna go at that point.
Absolutely, and if there's anything that needs to be communicated before that point that that is a specific, hey, I wanna bring this up, or we really need to have this looked at, please reach out up till that point, or up to it, and so that we can have that information ready to go. But yes, we will absolutely look to discuss that again on June 4th, and move forward to the end of the month with that, so. Any additional board questions, comments?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to make the graduation tomorrow due to a business change in Chicago, so. You're the first one I missed in
That's-
11 years.
That's the fun
That's
stuff.
the best part.
I know, it is, that will be hard, so thank you for letting us know, I appreciate that, so. All right, at this point in time, unless there's any other items that need to be discussed, we are going to need a motion to go into closed session. Again, we will come out of closed session, there will not be any action items on that afterwards. You are certainly welcome to wait in here, we will be leaving the room. But we certainly understand if you have other things that you'd rather do tonight, so thank you for coming, we really appreciate it. I just need a motion for closed session.
I move that the board meet in closed session as per Michigan compiled laws 15.268 paragraph H to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute.
Second.
Roll call please.
Beverly Garcia,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
Sadoo,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries, thank you.
I move that we come out of closed session and re-enter open session.
Second. 7:39.
You're not in. You're not
Hold on, second.
Okay, 7:39.
Roll call.
She's ready.
Be patient.
I'm
I was just letting her write first.
Or take your time because it's raining.
Beverly Garcia,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Isich, yes, Morris,
Yes.
Sadoo,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. All right, I just need a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.
Second.
Seconding all day.
Now,
finally?
Okay.
Who is that second?
Give it to Brittany, let her
Brittany
have
won the
her,
second.
let her have her minute.
Sweet.
Seconded all day.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you.